Hey, it's Tandy with the Sustainable Alaskan podcast with my co-host Kelly. We've got a really fun show today. I'm looking forward to it. I got a couple snippets when as Kelly and I were talking before we started recording, and I'm excited. I think I'm going to learn a lot. Um, yeah, I it's always fun to hear someone who's been there, done that, because there's so much to be learned from just that life experience that you're not gonna, I mean, you can read it in a book, but when you get to hear the stories and stuff, it's a lot better. So Kelly's going to talk about what she keeps in her medicine cabinet in her barn and the things that she thinks are important. But first, I want to hear what's going on. What's going on in on Kodiak Island this week? What's happening on your farm?
Thankfully it is fairly quiet, except this morning my Billy goats got out onto the road. And I live between like two of the busiest roads in Kodiak, not a lot of road, but like so they're running down next by the hospital and I'm getting all of the calls from everyone telling me. And then I'm out running with my little corgi dog and I didn't have anything in my car. So like I had the cleaning wipes in my car and I grabbed the cleaning wipes and I'm shaking. So like somebody's like, why does she have those wipes running down the road with two goats and a dog? And then I had a friend that confirmed that I indeed looked ridiculous. So if there had not been like a cliff that went straight down, we would have gone into the woods, but there were no other options. So it's just life.
So you're running down the road, being followed by two goats and a corgi shaking cleaning wipes.
Yeah, that was
And this
me.
is just another Thursday morning.
No, and then I came back to the office where I'm working and smell fantastic, but that's just life. I honestly I thought for a second, I'll open the van door and put these two guys in the van. And then I realized that no, I just needed to be embarrassed because my husband would he's very forgiving, but that would have been a hard one for him to.
I love it. And so why the cleaning wipes? Was it like, were you
That was
pretending it was like a treat?
for feed, yeah, like a
Yeah.
treat feed that they were gonna follow. They're very tame, and which is horrible for billy goats. I mean, this situation was great, but like I'm watching my goat go to the bathroom on himself, like
Oh,
so I'm trying to stay away because it's like projectile fluids coming out because they're very happy and excited. It's just billy goats at this time of the year are the worst. It's rut, they stink. They're like serious. I walk up with like a shovel or like a shield in front of me to keep from being sprayed by them. Anyway, that's it. That's all I have. I'm done. Ugh.
oh my goodness, I
Let's
love
talk
it.
about you. Are you done
That was
harvesting? Are you still harvesting?
so the farm is closed for the season. We're doing a little a community well, it's by invitation only just because we only have so many apples and so much space, but we're doing a little apple cider pressing on Friday. And
Fun.
then my lady homesteaders are going to do one on Saturday, and I'm excited for that one because first we press apple cider, and then we're going on a, and then well, then when we're done with that, we're going to take the scraps, and everybody's going to go home with some vinegar in the making,
Nice.
and then they'll know how to make more if they want to, and they can take all the scraps they want because we always have way too many, and then we're going on a mushroom hike, and that'll be really fun. I love things like this because I enjoy teaching a lot, but I also enjoy learning. And on this mushroom hike, nobody's claiming to be an expert. We're just going to walk back in my woods and we're going to take all the mushroom books we can find and identify, people have different knowledge, and it's that collective knowledge that says that is, and I don't even know what mushrooms are up here, so I maybe, that's an amanita. Well, I know the amanita and I know the medicinal stuff with that, but that's a lion's mane, and or that's not a lion's mane, and here's why, and I have no idea what we even have, but anyway, it's going to be
That's fun.
really fun, and
That's
it's
super
just that
cool.
time of fellowship, and then we do a potluck after, so
Oh,
it's going to be a perfect day. But all the apple cider things are fun. I feel like we get to dress up for fall, and fall, I don't know about Kodiak, but here fall is very condensed. So we do summer, 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 and then we have this little tiny fall, and then winter kicks in, and it may not be winter, but as soon as we get a windstorm, the leaves will be gone, and then it just doesn't have the beautiful allure of fall anymore. So, but the woods smell like cranberries, which is, oh, that's my favorite smell. And So it's just really good.
Oh, fun. That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So that's what's going on the farm anyway. So, apple cider will be, oh, and we're practicing with apple cider for anyone who has a press or who does things with apple cider. We have a box of pears, which pear apple is my favorite. So we'll do one batch that's just pear apple. But we're putting some berries in with it. And I think that's going to be really fun too. And that's, some people don't like plain apple cider, but once you start adding berries and, some other flavors to it, it gets really fun. So.
Oh, so good. So
Yeah,
great.
yeah. But I don't have anybody running amok on my road, so I don't have the funny story.
That's all right. I'd prefer not to have the funny story.
I
Every
love
day,
it. That's
every day.
great. Okay, Kelly. So I had asked Kelly a while back, actually when she came here to visit the farm, which was a very neat time. Um, I had asked, okay, so I don't have anything for Mabel. I probably should have asked before I got her. I see where people say, oh, just give him some baking soda for this, that, or I don't even know what for, but I keep seeing all these little tips and, um, but I don't know what I'm doing and what should I even have on hand? And especially, I feel like I say this a lot, but especially in Alaska, when things are a little harder to find. If my daughter lived in Texas and Amazon was there in 2 hours. We are, weeks out. Um, so I'm excited to learn from this. I'm probably gonna have a lot of questions, just to tell you in advance.
Oh, I hope I do. I don't think that I'm a necessarily a good person to talk to about my medical cabinet. However, um, I guess I've made it okay to this point. So there are a few things that I have, but um, make just a couple of disclaimers. I have my notes here. Sorry, a couple of disclaimers. This is how I do it. It's not perfect. It's not necessarily how everyone else will do it. Yes, we definitely live a remote, more homestead lifestyle, yet I think modern medicine is pretty fantastic and it's kept a lot of things alive. There's, there for me is a marriage between the two, and both are pretty necessary. But um, my very first thing before do anything about a medicine cabinet or anything like that, you need to have a vet. And I know that that may not be what somebody wants to hear, but you have to have an established vet. My vet travels up from Wisconsin. He and his family have become good friends of ours. But you today, and this is very different than even 2 years ago, you cannot get medicine without a vet prescription. Medicine that I used to get no problem online and sent to me, you cannot get without a vet script now. Now, having the vet that I do, and because he's used to coming and knowing my herd, if I need something, he can call that in and have it shipped to me. Uh, but that type of a relationship is important to have. And then there are a few things that for me that I find really important because I don't have a vet on the island and very limited knowledge. Like I've had a twisted uterus before and had to untwist that to get baby goats. Not something I want to ever do, but have had to do those things. So I'm going to take as many precautionary um, steps as I can. So what I put in there too is having a solid animal husbandry plan will save you from having sick animals. Having really good facilities to keep your animals in. They don't have to be the newest, best, like nicest thing, but just a good proper fence. Being able to have them in a nice space with clean bedding, very, aerated, things like that. And then, financially being able to have quality feed for them. Like the quality of feed does make a difference. And I'm going to take a step further with these ruminant animals, secure feed. You only when I was a kid, and this isn't necessarily ruminant animals, but it's understandably the same. situation. We came home from church and I looked out and the horses were down on the side, and come to find out they had gotten into our bull feed, and it poisoned them. They were dead within 24 hours, our two horses. I mean, that was it. It was very horrible. You need one situation like that to realize, like, keep your feed in a secure place. A goat will kill themselves on feed. If a goat gets out into your hog feed too much, like, it's hard to come back from something like that. So, there are some things that you can do to help keep you from having to deal with situations. And I'm gonna go. So the other point that I had with that was that the upfront work. So, um, I just it's I have a tricky time if somebody's like, I just brought home these animals and here we go. Like, just have a little plan in mind. And so if you're bringing home new animals and you don't know their background, there's the high possibility, I want to say probability, they might be carrying something that you just can't deal, like, you're not suited to deal with. I'm not suited to deal with extra problems. But if you bring that new animal in, you put them with your established herd, you're going to have potentially sick animals. So if you're going to bring home an animal, have a quarantine area for that animal to be able to be in before it goes in with your herd. I have a closed accredited herd, and sometimes I am the bad guy because I don't just let people come in and around my animals. I have set spaces that I can have the community in. We do agritourism and things like that, but I have a set location for that. I unfortunately have had to learn that the hard way too, and have lost animals by having them in a certain space that maybe they shouldn't have been in, or bringing an animal in that I just didn't realize was going to be sick, and I just had a losing battle from the beginning. So, um, and then
It's
know the type of animal that you have. Like, I have pigs, and so when we have piglets, that's some work. You're going to have to get an iron supplement. We trim their teeth. We're going to castrate them all within that first 5 days of life. Do you have a setup? Do you have the ability to do that? Do you have a vet that's going to come do that? Do you know how to do that? So, like, your iron supplement, gosh, if you get that iron supplement to your little piggies, you're going to save yourself potentially losing all your piglets, if they have a deficiency that comes in, if they're not on dirt, some of those things. So, um, those were a few of my, beginning parts of this whole thing. And then the parts that, we don't necessarily want to talk about. And again, this is definitely a disclaimer. I come from a very livestock background. So when I've talked about these types of things in the past, people are like, wow, you're really cold-hearted. And I'm like, no, that's not how we see it at all, because we don't want our animals to suffer. You have to make a choice. And so I always say, have a gun and know how to use it. If your animal is showing signs that they don't feel well, you're already at a losing battle, because normally these animals are animals of prey. And the last thing they want to do is show weakness or signs that they aren't, doing well. And so that can be a hard go. Now, all at the same time, my dad always taught me, if you see hope, if you see a glimmer of hope, keep fighting for them. I had one goat. I remember she got sick right at Christmas, and I thought, what am I doing? And, I was giving her supplements. I was tube feeding her every day, morning and night. And this was a 3-week period. And Steven's like, what are you doing here? And I'm saying, I see hope. I feel like she is going to get better. And by golly, that goat that couldn't walk, that couldn't hold up her head, she got better. And we had to relearn how to walk. And she always had kind of a little tick, and her eyes always fluttered a little bit. Um, but she was fine. And man, that goat was the most loyal goat to me that you'd ever find. So if there's hope, yes, you can still do these things. And then also to know that sometimes things are just not going to work out. And that's also okay. And that's part of having animals. Are you prepared to have a sick animal in your home. Not like in your home, but that weighs heavy. So my family knows immediately if there's a problem on the farm. My dad was the same way. I picked it up from him, and I mean, you just until that animal either dies or gets better, it's really hard. And it affects when supper is, it affects how mom's gonna be feeling about doing things. My fuse is incredibly short at that point, and my family's on board. They get it, and sometimes Steven's like, okay, maybe you just need to go. You need to go away. Like, we're okay here. And so being prepared for some of those things. So that's my big like backstory before I get to my medicine closet, Tandy.
I thought that was super informative. Do you mind a couple questions?
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, so I liked what you said about developing a relationship with your veterinarian in advance. That was a big one. I hadn't really ever thought about that, but as you're talking, I thought, man, if your veterinarian has been on your farm and they've seen things, they know access points, they know the animals that you have, then when you call and you say Mabel is down, she's not having to say, I mean, she's not that your vet's not always going to necessarily remember every little idiosyncrasy, but you can say, Mabel is down. She's, a 4-month old Jersey Highland mix. This is what's happened. She's already formulating a plan in her mind based on your situation because she's been there before and she knows. And I think there's got to be something said for that. But also, when you said the medications are hard to get, but now once you develop a relationship with your veterinarian, it makes me think of years ago when we had when we were still living in Oregon, and our whole family, well, not we all were sick. I went into the doctor, or I took the kids. I don't remember. Somebody went into the doctor, got diagnosed with strep throat, and the doctor said, been to this." It was actually the kid's pediatrician, I remember, and he was like, "We're just going to treat you all. If one of you has strep throat, we're going to treat you all with strep throat." That's a big difference between and he just knew, he wasn't willy-nilly handing out antibiotics, but I mean, we live in the same house and one has strep throat, So, but uh when you have a relationship with your vet, they're going to know your ability level too. So your vet would probably say you need to whatever tube feed. My vet would say, "Oh dear, Tandy's a pretty nervous person and she's never done this before, so she knows she's going to have to give me a lot more help than she would probably need to give you. With you, she can give you instructions. With me, I need somebody for a minute."
All right. So I am in the dairy world of things. And so a few things I always want to make sure I have plenty on hand. And this again is a little bit of preventative, yet I think it's all medically based because it has to do with each other. I have a pre-wash for my animal udders that like it has a little bit of chlorhexidine, which is one of those words that maybe isn't, that's a kind of a cleaning agent in it. And then I have my pre and post dip, which is an iodine blend. That's really important if you are having milking animals. The other part that's going to save you a lot, and here I'm saying this as somebody that just dealt with a cow with mastitis, but if it possible, have your animal stand up a half an hour after you're done milking. That'll allow their teats to close and be secure so they don't let anything up in their udder. So if you have a way, so whether you're feeding or however it's going, if they're in a holding standing pen, if you can have your milking animal stand for a half an hour after they've milked, you're going to save yourself some problems. And then I think the thing that I use when I was going through this list, what I use the most is a probiotic. I have a probiotic, whether that's a paste or something you're going to put in your water. I have a gut candy is what it's called for my cow that I use. She loves it. Have these ruminant animals, and a lot of the things, can be dealt with a little bit of a probiotic. So if you have a baby goat and you notice, I can smell it. The second I walk into the pen, I know if there's a goat that has the runs a little bit. It's a different smell, and I'm going to immediately give them probiotic. And here's your baking soda. Some people don't do this. I do. I put baking soda out like free mineral. I have baking soda for choice out for my cow, and they don't eat it all the time unless they need it. They're not going to eat it unless they need it, in my opinion. Some people, again, this is Kelly's side of things, so you can tell me all the reasons I'm wrong, but never lost an animal by having baking soda just out. And you can get big bags at Cost Savers. Ours is it's Costco. Sorry, we have a Cost Savers in Kodiak. So probiotic. Another one that I have is that it's thiamine, which is vitamin B, or it's a vitamin B complex that you can have. Those are like big old shots in the arm to your animal. So if I have a goat that's just a little bit laggy or something, giving them some vitamin. I used to have a goat that I could tell she'd just give a quart less of milk. I'd give her some vitamin B, and man, that just get her going again. So that
What makes them vitamin B deficient? Do you know? Like, is it just something they use and don't make enough of, or?
we're gonna have Dr. Dan on sometime, Tandy. We'll bring
Okay,
my vet on. He will happily do it. He'll do it
okay,
for us.
okay,
And then we can ask him all of our important questions, but we might
okay.
need to like split it up because he's a talker. Um, but anyway, and that thiamine is particularly important. You can have something called goat polio. That's what my one goat had, an extreme deficiency in vitamin B. That's when their eyes start to twitch, their extremities don't work so well. And a goat, man, if you can get on top of that right at the beginning with that thiamine, that's fantastic.
Nice.
And then another one is BOSE, capital B-O, capital E, or excuse me, capital S-E, which is a psyllium vitamin E combo. Now you can talk about, getting too much of that, not something I'm really worried about in Alaska with our extreme deficiency. So I have that on hand and I use it pretty frequently. I use it before having babies. I use it after. If you have a kid that has kind of for me, and this happens in sheep, it happens in goats. I'm assuming it happens in cows. It hasn't happened to me. However, like I'll have a goat kid and it'll buckle its leg weird. I'm like, oh no, what happened? Just give it a little Bosey, get it straightened back out, and it normally pops right. It gets where it needs to be, and you don't have any problem. And then that vitamin AED B12. Again, that goes hand in hand with my Bosey that I'm giving. So I give a pre-dose for my pregnant animals, and then not and then I give a post after birthing. They get that. Now you can find a paste. I like the injectable more because it gets into their system. There are some animals that are like, absolutely not. This is not going to happen. And so, yep, a paste can work. It can be helpful too. Calcium. I have calcium boluses. I have calcium, like the liquid calcium. I have calcium paste. Calcium is huge. So you can have, like for me, it's one of those things you just always watch for that animal to have that drop after they've had a baby for your cow or your goats. And that's particularly where that calcium comes in. And I have all forms because you just need to have it on hand. For me, it's like a non-negotiable. And then a dewormer. I do have a dewormer. I don't have to deworm a lot. If you are in the lower 48, this does not apply to you. There's a different whole set of rules with worms and the lower 48. Disclaimer. I know friends that have lost their entire herds to worms. For me here with a closed herd and the situation that I'm in, I treat my goats after they kid when I'm not using their milk anyway. Or the cow, you can do that before, you can do it after. Anyway, I do deworm. I deworm my horses. Do a check. If you're one of those people you're like, I'm not for a dewormer, you pull that eyelid down and look. Do you have a pink eyelid? Do you have a white? If you have a white eyelid, you got to get dewormer in that animal. There are natural forms of that. Personally, I will not depend on a natural form. You can do some preventative stuff, but they're gonna get treated with like an ivermectin once a year from me. And then iron for the pigs. The piglets need iron if you have pigs. And copper is another one that's always in my cabinet for my goats. Interesting. They say that copper's poisonous to sheep, but your goats have to have it. Uh, it's I've never had a problem. Even some minerals have copper in it that my sheep have gotten. We've been okay here, but a copper bolus, I get a big hefty copper bolus. And you can tell with your goats with the color. Like I always tell folks, like get a black animal because you're going to be able to tell if they are deficient in something because they're going to get that rusty color on their coat. Like a
Hmm.
black goat keeps you honest as far as how your animals are doing. Um, and then again, for on the pig side of things, I seriously looked into my cabinet. So this is probably not in order. On the pig birthing side of things, it's called Show Right. And I give it to my pig before they birth, and it just helps everything come out a lot quicker and smoother. On the pig side of it, I have a calf pro supplement, and I give that to my baby animals. So after I've either kidded or calved, they get that Calf Pro supplement in their bottles every time. I have
For how
penicillin.
long?
What?
How long are they getting the Calf Pro supplement?
I give them as long as they're getting milk.
Okay.
And I used to not do that. This is a new thing within the 2 years, but I notice a big difference with my kids and
Okay.
calves. And then a penicillin or an antibiotic. Right now, like my vet can't order me penicillin. There is none in stock. Yeah, for anywhere he's
Wow.
looking, he can't get penicillin. So he's on a constant like, hey, if you see it or if I see it, can we like get penicillin? Uh, in Alaska, he's such a stickler on Kelly, get rid of all your expired stuff. And I will not because in Alaska, we need that. So if it's not open and it's in the fridge, I'm keeping it no matter what the expiration date is on it. Then, but you have to be aware of that too, that potentially that might not work. But like right now, I have expired penicillin. I can't get other, so I'm keeping what I have. And then Banamine is one that I keep on hand as well. And that's for pain, swelling, things like that. And that can come in like if you have horses or something that have gotten hurt or, you have a problem. But I used it on my cow when her udder was so tight and inflamed. She was getting a Banamine supplement every day. Again, these aren't all natural remedies and things, but there comes a point when like if you want I want my animal to live and you have to make your own judgment call. A couple of little things like molasses. I always have a big gallon of molasses on hand that helps, spike their wanting to eat like after they've had a baby or like my cow after when she had her issues just needed a bunch of sugar water to help get her moving and going again. And then apple cider vinegar, that baking soda, those are really positive, great assets that you can use. And if you feel like you're in a good place and you can, like I put that baking soda, apple cider vinegar mix on Maggie's udder and it took all the swelling away and the inflammation. That was fantastic. And then on the animal side, I have Today, which is an antibiotic that goes right up into the udder if you have mastitis. And then I have Tomorrow, and that's one that if you've had problems and you put it into their udder, and you can put it into their udder if you're drying off. There is it Revival Farm? They have a lot of natural alternatives of things to use. I did use their one of their udder creams, and it was fine, but I needed something more. Than there's some subclinical mastitis things, and then there's like the septic in the system, and so those are kind of different situations. And your vet can help you out with that, or a person that you trust that has some answers. And then just on the if you're having animals, babies, gloves and lubricant and all the little things and a calf puller and a chain calf puller potentially if you need that. When I was a kid, my parents had to leave for the day and it was calving season and I came out and there was a cow down with a calf half out. And I called my parents. They're 3 hours away. And my dad's just, I know he's like, just cut your losses. It's going to be okay. The cow was still alive. The calf was dead. And I just went and got the calf puller. I went and got the four-wheeler. I hooked the calf puller onto the four-wheeler because the cow was down. I pulled that calf out and then I was able to get the cow up. Yes, the calf died. I was a blubbering mess, I remember. And I got the cow up. And then I remember I had to go to basketball practice. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I killed a calf. But by having some of those tools, and sometimes it does take just a little bit of a, I think I'm gonna try this. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen? There are sometimes as long as you have the tools and resources nearby. So that is like the quick of my list.
Okay.
There's a lot of talking. I'm sorry.
No, that was good. No, it was perfect. I took tons of notes and um no, that was super helpful. Did you happen to write down anything for chickens?
Chickens are we could have a good chicken person in here. I have um now this is where it's a little bit different. Like I do have a kind of a natural chicken dewormer that
Mhm.
we use, and it's a chili powder mix, and that works pretty darn good. The other thing is we use like pre-mixed feed. So you're getting some good items in that. I've noticed the biggest thing, like if you at the very beginning, I have that electrolyte mix for your chicks that we always give them. I do notice a difference in that. We do notice a difference too if we don't use the chick starter feed and towards to regular feed, and that's that starter that we have. An apple cider vinegar in their water every day. That's really helpful as far as keeping things um, going. It's so tricky as to like how hard do you work with the chicken or not work with the chicken. I am so sorry for all of my chicken loving people out there, but I'm like, oh, let's just not. Let's the chicken let's have another baby. But or more chicks. Anyway, it can be that's a tricky one, but I am not the chicken connoisseur. I have one of my good friends actually manages everything. I had a small little herd. She's grown it huge here, but she'd be a good person too to ask all the chicken things too.
So I guess the like a late disclaimer to give is, but Kelly, what gives you value in this is that this is what you do with your boots on the ground.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that it's what everyone else is doing, but how are you preparing? And the hope would be that as people are listening to this podcast and they may listen to another podcast or read another book or whatever, and collectively we're making our own plan. But there's things that we're learning and picking up and starting to do that just makes so much sense. And you can maybe do it a little bit more confidently because we know, well, Kelly does this, so there are people who do this. People
Right.
people who actually have a cow or have a sheep or have goats are actually doing this. And there's tons of value in that. It doesn't mean that you're the do all and end all, and it doesn't mean that we won't have other people on the show that are maybe going to give us a little bit different perspective or have different ideas. And but hopefully the goal is never to follow it with any of it. The goal is never to follow one person and be like, well, I'm going to do it exactly like she does, but it's more what's going to work on my farm. But thinking about things like your antibiotics and having stuff like that on hand, that's important because when you need it, you need it. And
Yeah.
um, so the reason I asked about chickens was because I had never thought about a probiotic for a ruminant animal. I don't have a solid understanding of how a ruminant's belly works. I do have
Mhm.
a solid understanding of a chicken, and so my chickens either get kefir or yogurt regularly. They've learned to love it. I sometimes I'll put some berries or something in there, but I just put it. It just goes out there in a bowl, and
Yeah.
and they just eat away at it. And whenever I have extra, it goes out to them. And there's no rhyme or reason to the timing. Sometimes it'll be fairly close together. Sometimes it'll be a little bit further apart. It's no, but when you mentioned the probiotics, I thought, well, I can't give kefir and yogurt back to my cow.
Right.
So I never even thought about him needing probiotics. So that was what got me thinking about chickens. But
Yeah, that
um,
gut candy is just a powder you can sprinkle on. Oh, I also have I don't have it in my thing, but it's a vitamin E supplement that I give my cow as well that keeps the milk sweet. Um, or Like I use chaff hay. That's a fermented hay that's really helpful for your ruminant animals also. And then I had brought these, I forgot to, like, I have this big old book. It's the sheep and goat medicine book that I use. And then I also have this holistic goat
Mhm.
care. You can see that. These are a couple that I have on hand so that if I want to understand more, like if Dr. Dan's like, oh, this and this and this, and I can go in and geek out just a little bit on it.
Yeah. Well, and the longer you have these animals, the more you're gonna be comfortable doing things.
Right. Right.
I've never done anything with a tube before, but I'm sure we will at some point. And then once we've done it, then we'll know better how to do it.
Not my favorite.
No, it doesn't. Well, and that's good that it's not.
And thankfully, we don't like, I've not done that in 8 years, 9 years. I think I just don't, it's not something, I really think that there's some preventative work that can happen that can help. Um, and there's at time I've realized like I feel like I'm really good at animal husbandry and I still have problems. So there's also that. Like you can be doing a fantastic job, but I will say I have a lot fewer issues today than I did year 1 and 2. Year 1 and 2, it was like I feel like I'm doing a really good job. I just have fewer problems. I have my animals, I've developed my herd, I have
Yeah,
those types of things. However, we've had enough issues just in general to say, oh, we will always have these on hand. So like when my cow tries to unalive herself, we can take care of that.
that's right. That's right. Very good. Well,
Mm.
Kelly, I think this has been great. I learned a lot. I made myself a list. We'll probably have a list that people can look through. I think that's always nice to have something that you can read through. So I thought this was super helpful. Um, so I'm going to ask a specific question. You may or may not have advice on this, but um, Mabel is 3.5 months. She's almost 4 months old. Wow. Um, she just gets her feed and she gets some hay and some grass. Should she be getting any sort of supplement in your mind? She's never had a supplement, any sort of supplement. So I probably maybe should do the antibiotic or not the
I think
antibiotic. I didn't mean
that
that. I should do
a little
the
probiotic.
probiotic. Yeah.
You're gonna come into before breeding her. That's when she's gonna need to get some bonus supplements. So when you're getting
Okay.
closer to that breeding um time, I think that there's prepping that calf. Something that I forgot to mention is also a pour-on for bugs like lice and things like that.
Oh,
I do have, is it Epinex? I can't remember what it's called, but I do a pour over um for my animals once a year.
and then you just don't have to deal with it at all.
I don't.
Okay. Fair enough. Well, I think
Yeah.
this is great. I think this is super helpful. I think it would be fun to have a veterinarian come on and talk. And I
Yeah.
think it would also be fun to have someone like Doc Jones come on who is, he's a herbalist veterinarian. And then we kind of have we've got the middle of the road and then we've got the two sides too. And I think that would be super helpful.
It's super fun. That's excellent.
Kelly, thank you very much. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
that was fun.
This has been great.